So welcome, Mr. Matoko, to the Spotlight Studio. It's wonderful to have you here. The Spotlight Initiative, as you know, is a 500 million euro initiative to eliminate violence against women and girls. It's a partnership between the EU and the UN. So we are bringing guests into the studio to talk about gender equality issues and to learn more about your work and how it intersects with SDG 5. So let me jump into the questions. How do you think that the European Union can better contribute to the development of the African continent and African women?
Okay, first of all, thank you for inviting me here. Bonjour tout le monde. Habari. Uh, there is something in Africa which is called Agenda 2063, which is supposed to be the dream of all Africans by Africans and by the African Union. So we, international organization, if we want to really contribute to the transformation, not only the development, but the transformation of the African continent, we should follow the objectives of this agenda, which is almost the same as the Agenda 2030, but it is the expression of, supposedly, it's the expression of all Africans. And it has 8 pillars. Among the 8 pillars, there are 2, education and culture. Culture meaning not only the memory of the African people, but regaining also the cultural identity of African. And I think that from what we have been discussed yesterday and today, the role of African women in transmitting the values, in transmitting the culture, in perpetuating the culture of our people is very important. That's where European Union can make a difference. There are already many programs going on in Africa. I think one dimension, very important, I said it this morning, is that we need to raise awareness of our African women that they have certain rights that they have to defend themselves. So education, training, raising awareness is very important.
Great. I realized I failed to say where you're coming from. You're the Assistant Director General for UNESCO in Africa, and thus the focus on culture and the preservation of culture and what that means in terms of women in Africa and women's identity. So going back to that, the role of education and culture in fostering the development of the African continent, and how can education and culture serve to empower women in Africa?
We've seen since the 60s, after the independence of many of the African countries, we've seen that where countries that have achieved full access to education, with men and women, have made a lot of progress in terms of economic growth, also in terms of social and cultural development. And there is a say also, which is not only African, when you educate one woman, you educate the people. So that's a reality in Africa. You look over the continents, and you see we still have many countries with below 50% of school education for girls and women, which is a drama. And that's where we have to to focus our efforts. Beyond the access to education, where they have achieved full access, we have also an issue of quality of education. Quality of education, the quality of education means that you have good teachers, good books that are not stereotyped, So that's also a big effort to be done to be made by African government and international partner. But clearly speaking, if you want women to be more active, to participate in the development of African countries, they have to be educated. They have to be aware of what they're doing. They have to know where they're going. They have to know what is the future of their society and their family, And we have the European Union and UNESCO also. We have done a lot in terms of educating girls and women in Africa, but not only educating in the cities or in the school, out of school.
Yeah.
Non-formal education is also important. They believe me. If you travel throughout Africa, you go in some part of the countries like Ethiopia, South Sudan, refugee camps. There is a big drama in terms of education. It's not only a question of the cost of education. It's also a question of tradition. And I think, as like the African Union, we need also to fight against those traditions that prevent women to go to school because of certain local reality, because of the marriage, early marriage, because of MGF, etc., etc. This is a big barrier. Whatever law you issue, if you don't fight against the cultural practices, I mean, you go nowhere. And this is a big, big fight.
It's so important that you said that because we know that maintaining girls' education is a great way to prevent future violence. And also having the space to educate boys on gender equitable practices and how to be better male citizens is also a fantastic way to ensure that they don't become perpetrators later in life. So tell me, in your work and in your knowledge and experience in Africa, how much does violence against women impact social and economic development in Africa?
Oh, it's visible. I mean, when in society where women are considered inferior to men, they don't take part in the development of the community, or they are used as slaves. They do the work, and the men sit at home. And you see, I mean, you cannot have a global picture of Africa because Africa is very, very different. But if you go to some villages, just if you travel, you see that women are doing some work in the camps, and men are sitting along the road, chatting, or and see the economy of the village. It's not progressing. It's not progressing, and we have made a series of campaigns in the rural areas in Africa to raise awareness for women that they have the right to go to school. They have the right to stand up and tell the husband that they are equal in the family, in the community. But it's a very long process. But nevertheless, everything's not black or negative. In certain, from the 60s up to today, we estimate that at least more than 90% of the African countries have adopted and issued laws to fight violence against women. Now, implementing the law is another issue, but it's already a step further in the achievement of the equality between men and women. But you have also to consider that depending on the economic situation of the countries, this issue can be resolved quickly, or because it's not only a question of men and women. It's the whole society that is concerned, and it's the whole system of governance also. System of governance that is concerned. Thank you.
So I am really excited. Spotlight is programming in 8 countries in Africa. I'm really looking forward to connecting more with UNESCO to work on these critical issues.
Sure.
Spotlight is taking an approach very much as you outlined, looking at the governance, institutions, society, community, and individual behaviors and how they can really transform this issue. So we can eliminate violence against women and girls by 2030.
We have many people working there in Africa, NGOs, United Nations, European Union, civil society. What is missing? Maybe it's coordination. It's not the fault of the Africans. It's the fault of those who go there and do things from their own corner, and they don't coordinate, or they duplicate. Okay, that's also something that we need to do to improve.
A fantastic piece of advice. I'm taking that
Thank
back
you.
with me. Mr. Matoko of UNESCO, thank you so much.
Merci.
Merci, merci
Asante
bien.
sana.